Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you are. So I've made it pretty much bang on time today. Um, I've had a few people in the chat already. So Master Chief Burgess has graced me with his presence today already. I'm a bit out of breath because I've just been going up and downstairs about 20 times. Keep forgetting something. Yeah, so you'll watch it later. That's good. I think you also added a question or some commentary later on the chat. Jerome has made it his second, so he's done very well there. Commendations to you. Yeah, I've made quite a few people moderators on this this live channel YouTube thing. Basically, people that I trust or people that have been following my channel for a while. Anyone that I speak with on a relatively regular basis online. People that support my channel in general, that I trust, essentially are moderators. So, fortunately, there's quite a lot of you. So, regardless of the time zone that I aired some of these videos, I should always have someone on that can help deal with the chat. On the chat, it's quite difficult to perhaps deal with trolls if they're on here. So people that perhaps have a negative view on what you have to say. When I say negative, I don't mean just they disagree with you. I mean they're a bit pompous usually. So I get a lot of those people in my comment section. So it's unfortunate, but the truth will prevail. The cream rises to the top, all that sort of thing. So hopefully enough time goes by and people will appreciate anything useful I have to say, and anything that isn't useful, they can just throw it away and forget about it, and that's completely fine with me. Yeah, here we go. I was here for a while, but I've been outside. Yeah, Rick's been ready for this. He's born ready. Yeah, Rick was actually one of the first moderators on my little channel. He was watching me from the start. I'm trying to think where this was from. I think I met you on Bart's channel. I think it was Bart's. And you sort of followed me along from there somehow. And we talk off air for email sometimes. That's quite nice it's nice to speak to you guys off air, which is always different than the sort of the personality you have on YouTube. I try and be a bit more professional on the YouTube channel, but I can't always guarantee that. Lol, yeah. So Master Chief Burgess said something to start the conversation. I stopped drinking coffee and dairy in January. So far, it seems to have a positive effect on my blood glucose and a reduction in my morning lung congestion. Yeah, that's quite believable. I mean, if I have too much dairy in my diet, my dairy consumption is pretty larger than most people's. I find I feel congested. It brings back some symptoms of asthma. My nose is a bit more phlegmy. My voice is a bit more hoarse sometimes. So, yes, perfectly believable. The most important thing, though, is probably things like your blood glucose, which is going to be a major determining factor in terms of your health outcomes. So, that's very good to hear and very good to see. Yeah, keep us updated with that. It'd be interesting to see, 6 months down the line, do you notice any other health benefits, or perhaps 3 months down the line? The hood hinge broke when working my truck, but thankfully I have quick reflexes. Interesting you say about that. Rick, you always seem slightly you seem similar to me in some ways. So I used to be a sprinter, quite a decent level, as in always the fastest in my school. I was very good at that sort of thing. Getting back to the sprinting and the reflexes. So I always had to do these tests, like reaction tests in school. It might be in science, or in university would have to do them for the effects of caffeine consumption, reaction times. My reaction times were always much faster than everyone else's. I think it is something to do with autism. That does seem to be a thing because you've got more sensory awareness, I believe, or a lot of people do on the autistic spectrum, so it could be why. I think that's probably the one thing, but it's frustrating because I've always had a bit of concern when I was doing sprinting that I'd be given a false start, for starting the race without the gun going off, sort of thing. But I just had quick reflexes. I was never predicting the gun. I could just go when I heard the. So yeah, it's interesting though. Doesn't serve much use in real world life. So yeah, funny that. So Big Nev, hello, nice to see you. You're probably about an hour or so ahead of me right now. Glad you made it here tonight, and thank you for your update. I believe it was yesterday. We're working on your plan at the moment, which is good, so we can put something together which is going to help you out a bit, I think. I've been stuck behind the computer for nearly all of today, other than this morning when I had physio and did my workout. So I think I'm going to take a rest tonight from it all, catch up tomorrow. But yes, everything's underway. Hello. As I work on my metal lathe. Yeah, be careful, don't burn yourself or cut anything off. That's Sophie. Sophie joined the chat. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate you're probably going to be busy in about half an hour with your friendship groups and gatherings. So hope you enjoy that event. Carnivore, that's Matthew. Nice to see you. I'm glad you made it here in time. Hi, Sophie. I'm just going through all of these in case I miss something, because this time of day, my eyesight isn't always best, and I'm a bit tired, so don't miss anything. Here we go. The nice thing about this community versus some others is that everyone's very friendly to each other. You see each other's, if you're online and active quite a lot, you see other people's names come up a lot and you befriend them in not a lot of cases. So it's good to see that sort of cohesion going along. Love the background. Thank you, Sophie. So I actually had to flip this image across, so horizontally. So this bit wouldn't be in the red bit. So yeah, it took a bit of jigging about. Had to dull all this stuff out so it didn't look too bright and horrible. Because I've got to see myself in the screen at the end of the day, and I don't really want to see bright lightning strikes and things that wake me up too much. Got Marwan here again. Nice to see you. I'm guessing you're from Germany, based on your name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Good evening, Nick. Nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it's a Monday and you're probably tired from work. But yeah, hopefully we'll get this going in a bit and we'll get some good questions. So anyone that does have any questions to ask me, please just put Q or question marks first, or make it obvious. Then I can get to that question. Got Lambs joining us. Thank you very much. And Lambs, thank you very much for your comment. I think it was last night. The advice that you gave me, and that was much appreciated. And I'm going to take it on board. So thank you for that. Tracy's joined us. Nice to see you. I think Sophie was the first moderator, yeah. But outside of that, I think Rick was the first, I think. Rick was the first other than Sophie, then Nick. I don't know. This is like trivial, but I don't really care. It's just nice to see you guys. That's the main thing. Do you drink coffee, and what is your opinion on it? Yeah, so the main thing that people concerned about when it comes to coffee is that it's addictive, overstimulates the adrenal glands. It reduces the amount of natural cortisol you can produce, which downstream affects how much energy you have. And as in, basically, you need more coffee. So every time you have a coffee, you almost desensitize your natural production of energy, like your wake up hormones. So do I drink it? I do drink it. I tend to have maybe one coffee a day. Some days I'll not have any for about 3 or 4 days. Other days I'll just have a decaf. It's not something I really worry too much about. What I do know is if I drink too much coffee, I end up being much more thirsty. So I try not to do too much of that. I'm quite concerned about not drinking more than what I need. I think you should ultimately aim to become fat adapted and produce more metabolic water. So that means when I can't even explain the process of it. This is where I've watched too many videos and I've just sucked in too much information. I've just dumped a load of it in the memory bank. Yeah, become fat adapted and you won't need as much water. But I'm going way off topic here. I'm going to get to the next question. If you have any questions that relate to that answer, just let me know. Caught any iguanas lately? I'm guessing you're talking to Rick. I've not caught any in the UK. I've not caught any animals in the UK. Although sometimes I'm graced for the presence of a, trying to think, called false widow. That's a tiny little spider we get in the UK, like maybe that big. It's got white markings in like a funny shape on its back, and they do bite and they do hurt when they bite. Are they poisonous? Apparently to some people, but yeah, we do get those, and I tend to always collect them up and put them in a jar and to see what happens. I'll let them go free usually, but sometimes they just disappear. So yeah, they're probably here right now. Dave, yeah, that's everyone doesn't know that Master Chief Burgess is called Dave, but I'm not sure if he likes being called that. So yeah. Good evening, Jonathan. What's your exercise recommendation for those who are back to zero after injury or inactivity? Core stuff like BDSM plus P or more specific focus? That's a good question. It depends what injury it is. So, if, for example, you're like my brother several years back and he snapped his shin, his idea of exercise was getting some bands whilst lying down on the bed and just doing side raises with the bands in a sort of motion, maybe some curls, maybe trying to find a way to do overhead extensions. He couldn't load his leg at all, so he's very limited. Now, if it's a spine problem, as long as you keep your spine neutral and you don't load it, you shouldn't have too many issues. And when I say load, I mean put yourself into a planar position which acts against the spine. So if you're leaning forward too far, if you're upright and you're putting a weight on your back or on your hands, if you're carrying too much beyond what your capabilities are, that's going to be quite dangerous. I saw my physiotherapist today, and they do actually they aren't inclined to tell me that my bodybuilding stuff that I do at home in the garden is right for me, because I'm a bit of an N equals one. My body strength, athleticism, I'm not fit, but I'm quite strong relatively speaking. So my level of fitness in that regard is a bit higher than most people's. So my training coming back from injury is going to be a bit higher than the average person's. Someone that is perhaps 80 years old, quite a frail person, someone that isn't physically fit maybe, their baseline will be just getting up from the chair to standing and back down. Someone middle-aged might be going for a long walk. I'm trying to add in bits and pieces like that. But yeah, I mean, core strength's very important. I'm coming to notice this now. I've been wearing a waist brace. You can't see it, but I might show you guys later. Been wearing that for around 6 weeks at this point. That means anytime I am doing anything more than walking around the house, I'm wearing a waist brace. And at this point, it's not so much to keep me still, but it's more to give me an idea that, okay, I shouldn't bend down when the brace becomes a bit tighter and there's like friction. So it's more of a proprioception feeling kind of thing. But yeah, if you can let me know what injury you're speaking about, that might be helpful. I can give you some better advice than that, perhaps. Jacqueline, nice to see you. Yes, also autistic here, and was a high-level goalkeeper my whole life. Reflex and a huge field of visions. Yes, I feel like my peripheral vision goes forever. Interesting you say that. I'll find out as well. I always find I'm probably the first one to observe things usually in a given environment. And funny enough, Jacqueline, for anyone doesn't know, I used to be involved in virtually every sport you could think of, at least British sort of sports. I was a goalkeeper in football, like soccer maybe, call that as well. And yeah, I did rugby. I was a winger. That was a guy that runs along the side and no one throws the ball to him, but he aims to score a try. That was my job. American football, I was defensive end and tight end and an offensive lineman. I played a lot of roles because I had this very small team, so I had to play on both ends of the team, if that makes sense. So I I was always out of energy and I was gassed, but they did run me into the ground. They made very good use of me as a player. So probably didn't do my body or back any favors, but yeah, there we go. Super, thank you. Oh, wait, no problem. Brilliant. I appreciate that. Brilliant, Matthew. Do you reckon it's possible for a lifelong lean 50-plus-year-old person to build muscle of any significance? Yes. It'll take you longer. I'm assuming you mean yourself, but it'll take you longer than myself, as in myself when I started training at about age 13. I mean, I know your programming is doing some stuff at home, so if you can find a way to train as frequently as possible while still recovering and making the exercises that you are doing, so the limited range of home workout stuff you are doing, intense as possible, whilst with the caveat of still recovering from it, you can build significant muscle. So I definitely think that's possible. Now, is that going to happen as quick as someone that's a bit younger? Perhaps not. Many people speculate that the testosterone in a person's body is the main underlying factor which contributes to huge muscle mass. We got to think about testosterone is it's one of many hormones that the human body produces, and it has more roles than what people think. People never often comment about the IGF-1 pathway. So if, for example, you have low testosterone, for example, based on blood test results, Sean Baker theoretically has a low testosterone. Will be interesting to see is because he is a superior athlete. He is a proper athlete. Like, he's achieved a lot. Like, so he's done something right. Part of that will be genetic, maybe, perhaps. But another part of that will be other growth pathways. So maybe the IGF pathway might be amplified. Maybe he can assimilate protein and deal with that better than most people, so he can tolerate high protein grammage. You know, there's all these different little nuanced things that can make a big difference in someone's progress. But I always say, like, the only guarantee of failure is if you quit. And if your goals are bigger than your lack of mental fortitude, then I think you'll reach your goals, Lambs. So I think it's very much possible, and I would commend you if you do that, and I'd congratulate you as well if you manage to achieve your goal, and I hope you do. Question: if you need some graphics work done, feel free to pop a message or whatever you can do on the YouTubes. I'll fix you up. Thank you. Yeah, can you leave a comment under this video? Then I can find your channel or something. That'd be helpful. Or I can find your email or something. But yeah, I'm not very rich at all. I don't have a big amount of money, a large amount of money, sorry. But yeah, my graphics are all entirely homemade. You know, using like software that I can access that is relatively affordable. But I'm by no means an expert. That's something I'm looking at doing a lot better. And there's a few things I'd like to be made, but I don't really know how to do it because I'm not an artist by any means or creator in that way. So thank you for the offer. I appreciate that. Might have been. Early water. Yeah. I mean, what's interesting now is I've got a cup of water here. I've got probably about 10 grams of taurine in there for some reason. I don't know why. I think I've scooped too much. But I've also, controversial, got a can of Pepsi Max. They're not sponsoring me, by the way. But yeah, I'll probably get ripped into a lot for that. But I quite like Pepsi Max. Am I addicted to it? Probably not. I mean, there are periods of time where I can just not have it for ages. But then sometimes I get taste for it, I think I'll quite enjoy that. I've measured my blood glucose before and after drinking these things quite a few times. I can say it doesn't make a difference to me. So that's something that people worried about. And there's another thing as well about the gut microbiome. It will affect your gut microbiome, perhaps, yeah, quite possibly. I think I'm the sort of person that until I see a negative effect or something, or I can see very convincing evidence to suggest that it will kill me or seriously harm me, I'd rather err on the side of I enjoy Pepsi Max, so I'm going to drink Pepsi Max. I wouldn't recommend it to people because it's probably going to be a net negative overall for most people, but I quite enjoy it. I can restrain from drinking a lot of them if I want to. But yeah, that's my standpoint on it. And just bear in mind, I'm saying I quite like it, and I want to drink it sometimes, but you don't have to. I'm not telling anyone to do anything like that. So yeah, I know people pop up all the time and they get worried about when I drink something I'm not meant to drink, like Pepsi Max. Jacqueline said, I'm testing out some deuterium depleted water right now. It's just arrived. I too am trying to decrease water consumption, suck it down mindlessly. Yeah, so as someone that is athletic like yourself, I know you on a relatively personal level. There's a whole thing in the fitness community about drinking a lot of water. You know, I know people that drink liters of water. When I say liters, I mean like 10. I think, well, how is their need for water so much higher than mine at half the given lean muscle mass on the body and the same relative energy expenditure, like activity level? I struggle to see that that's going to be beneficial to them. I don't think water requirements differ that much between humans. I think there's a ideal or different amount for most people, and that's going to be what their first level dictates. Depends where in line with the equator you are, your latitude on the planet. Perhaps it makes a difference as well. Your epigenetics, things like that, might make a difference. But it'd be interesting to see how you get on. Yeah, if you can try and get your deuterium level, if you can ever get a test, I don't know, somewhere around about 120. That's probably the ideal sort of amount. That would be quite a good sort of amount to get to. It's going to be difficult though, because sometimes you add in foods which are outside of that and it automatically bumps it up a bit. But yeah, what I've noticed as well, Jacqueline, is that if I have a higher fat intake, and I'm talking very high fat, like over 300 grams of fat, my thirst goes right down, like ridiculously. Like water doesn't appeal to me anymore. So yeah, I think you'll see a bit of a benefit from that. It's something you do for a period of time, maybe like 3 months, and assess if it was worth it or not. Then see how you get on. But keep me updated, and I'll be interested to see how you get on with that sort of thing, because these sort of biohacks are usually not done by many people. I've only heard of a few people actually try deuterium depleted water, so hopefully that works out for you, and it gives you the desired result, and you don't have to keep buying it. You know, because I know that stuff's expensive. What's your thoughts on how to accurately calculate one's lean body mass so as to determine protein requirements? Skin folds, bioelectrical impedance, as most don't have access to a DEXA scanner. Yes, you're completely right. I quite like, for ease of use and practicality, the bioimpedance machines, assuming you have one that gives a reliable set of data. So, for example, if you do, say, step on the scales in the morning, you do it 3 times over, and those 3 times, it gives a very, very near similar answer. That's probably the easiest way to do it for the average person without spending a bomb. That's without any prior training or knowledge of how to do things. Skin folds I also use. I think I've got my caliper down here somewhere, but that's effectively a pinch thing, a pincher, and it's got a measurement which will tell you the distance between here and here, and that will give you the millimeters of fat that a given fold of skin will have. Human skin at the lowest tends to run around about 2 millimeters. Most people will not get to that point if they're trying to lose body fat. I can say myself that when you lose body fat, it does come off of you in different places and at different times in different pockets. So they say you lose body fat all over. Yes, of course you do. But you might notice that you hold more in your legs, but over a week or 4-week period of time, wherever you hold more fat, that area of the body might decrease the most as well. So I've done this heaps of times. I've probably calculated body fat with calipers about 100 times at this point. So I've pretty much nailed it down how to do it. And yeah, I think the abdominal skin fold is very useful to do, because you can reach it and you can access it easily. And I think that's got quite a lot of value. So you're looking at that sort of thing. Outside of that, you might use the mirror and the scales. You'll notice a general trend in things. Generally, people that lose body fat, if that's what someone's trying to do, is the digestion usually gets better because they're not force feeding. Because people traditionally overeat, especially if they're coming from a standard Western diet. So that's something to figure in as well. I hope that answers your question. If you have any more questions or nuanced sort of ideas about that, just let me know and I can try and answer more for you. Got Sheena. Good morning, I imagine, or good evening. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you've probably woken up from your slumber to be here. Sheena's got a great channel, so if anyone can link her channel in the chat, that'd be useful. She's quite a supportive person. Her whole thing is the Carnivore diet, and I did an interview of her a while ago, and we spoke about lupus, putting that into remission, and her tremendous weight loss journey that she's been undertaking. So she's a very inspiring person, much like many of the other people in my chat. Question concerning coffee/herbs. Being a high-level athlete, do you notice any differences between 95 and 100% carnivore? I haven't had sore muscle at all since I'm on the strictest form of PKD. It's pretty crazy. That's interesting. Yeah, I think that is quite individual. It sounds like a very sort of cliche answer, but you'll have some people that have great intolerances to some herbs or spices, and some that don't. Something like turmeric for me is probably one of the worst things I can consume. It binds very much to iron, heme, so you don't absorb anything really once you've had turmeric in for example, curry that's got a load of turmeric in it, and therefore anti-nutrients. Some other things are less toxic. I think rosemary is one of the less toxic ones. Perhaps oregano, onion, garlic, maybe. But it depends what your issues are with different anti-nutrients. Oxalates seem to be a big issue for people like myself with autism, so that's something that I would ideally avoid from the diet as much as possible. Something like perhaps salicylates, they can be quite damaging to some people. It depends on your genetic, biological tolerance to these things. I'll probably say nutritively, so out of the food I eat, if you're to go by energy value, it's well over 95% carnivore. And 95%, I mean, how many meals am I doing? Hold on. 4%, 600. Yeah, I'm doing about 112 meals per month. One of those meals out of 112 is a omnivore diet. So that'll be, I don't know, might be a pizza. I don't really like this, but it might be like a beef burger with cheese and the bun and maybe a bit of lettuce and some French fries. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall in my diet. Now, people that follow this sort of diet are going to be oftentimes a lot more strict than I am because they want to really put something into remission, like the autoimmunity. So I can appreciate why 100% carnivore would be more appropriate for some people than others. For myself, I don't notice much difference. It would be interesting to undertake at some point because I do like sugar-free sweeteners and things like that, evidently from the Pepsi Max sometimes. I don't seem to notice a negative effect, but that doesn't mean that someone else won't. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. Hey, Sheena. Hello, Nick. I see. No, that's nice. So you're over in the Scandinavian countries. That's cool. Probably not that far from me, like geographically. Probably 1,000 miles or something. You mean a girdle? I'm lost. I probably said something that didn't make sense. Concerning inactivity injury, I was talking about great muscle loss in general, building the movement apparatus appropriately from a point of being undermuscled and prone to orthopedic issues. Yeah, so I spoke about this with Phil Escott and Ben Hunt in a private online forum chat thing that I take part in every day. The main thing is, especially with orthopedic issues and maybe muscle inactivity, is to get some sort of load on the body. So if you're fragile that you can barely walk, you might aim to just do a few steps. If you're someone that can walk, go for a slightly longer walk each time, perhaps do something called rucking. And that's where you add a weight and maybe like a rucksack or something, and you walk for an extended period of time. That'll add more load to your body, so your bones would have that encouragement to build up and build back density. Muscles in general. Any kind of static contraction might be useful as well. So if, for example, you're doing a shoulder press above your head, you might just hold a static contraction in the midpoint. That might be useful. Outside of that, I mean, you could do like a static contraction push-up. If you can do movement, I'll suggest anything. If anything, you'll be doing it on the slower side of things, so not exploding up in exercises. Building muscle movement. I'll try and. So an issue I have at the moment, which kind of links into this, is my hamstrings and glutes are very tight. My hips in general are very tight. That's from my surgery. I can't stretch. I can't stretch in a way that I need to stretch to improve those areas of flexibility, because my spine doesn't twist in that way, because it's the bottom of my spine, rather than being two separate lumps, is now one big lump. Because it's fusing, I can't twist it and do things. So that's one issue that I have in terms of flexibility. Now, if you can do something that aids flexibility, I'd recommend doing it. Something like a 30-second minimum static hold in a stretch position. Over time, you'll find that you can do this for more seconds with a greater level of stretch. Ideally, it sounds a bit ridiculous, but ideally, if you can do that every day, say in the morning or when you're most warm and you're most energetic, maybe that might be useful. Yeah, you're looking at least 30-second stretch for that sort of thing. And when I finish any stretches, if I do them, I like to end it on a contraction. There seems to be some good research which suggests that if you try and contract a muscle you've just stretched, that stops you from having injuries as a result of having a stretched out muscle. So it kind of makes sense. It's like reactivating what was previously just loosened out. So yeah, that's called proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. So that might be something to look at as well. You could probably practice that with like a chiropractor or a physio, maybe. Shared. Thank you, Sheena. Professional Paranormal Research, PPRCM 73. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining today. I'm surprised there's 20 people in this chat, because I didn't share this out at all. And our friend Jerome here, he said that my stuff wasn't being put out, notifications weren't coming out. I'm glad this one has, so that's good to know. So I'm maybe in the good books now, and I'm not being too controversial. In terms of things I might say offline, maybe. I don't know. I've been bedridden for 1 year. It's impossible to get muscular. Is it possible to get muscular again? I'm on the carnivore diet. Yes. Yes, it is. Depends on the reason why you're bedridden. If you've lost all of your limbs, perhaps not. Maybe not. You might be able to build your neck up a bit, but yeah, that probably wasn't very good humor. But it depends what your issue is. I think it is possible. It just depends how bedridden you are, because I was bedridden for 2 days, paralyzed. I could just about roll over to wee in a bottle and pick up a glass of water, so I know how that feels. I wasn't doing any exercise, obviously, but yeah, just give me some context there, and perhaps I can give you some better advice than that. That'd be useful. Thank you. And thank you, Rich's actual name is Jonathan, so thank you for joining the chat today. Beautiful country, Finland. I visited twice in the 90s. I'd like to go to the Scandinavian countries at some point. I've been to Denmark. If that is Scandinavian, I'm daft. I've been everywhere in Europe, but those sort of areas really. And a few Eastern European countries I've not been to, so that'd be interesting to go to. And everyone there's probably tall as well, like me, so it'd be nice to sort of fit in a bit. Hello, PPR. Hello, Pacello. Nice to see you. I'm glad you've made it today. Like the times before, so I'm not surprised at all. Gina's friend here, I'm new. That's where I recognise your name from. Yeah, thank you for joining. I'm glad you're here. If you have any questions, by the way, relating to nutrition, exercise, health, biohacking. Just put a Q in front of what you've got to ask. I'll try and get around to answering that for you. If you seem to care at all for what I've got to say, that's up to you. I don't mind, but feel free to do that if you like. I'm also poor. I know the feeling, Rick. It's quite devastating at times, but you know, you just got to persist these things. And for example, yesterday, I did. I wasn't planning to do it, but asked you guys. I said, "Would you like me to do it?" And you said yes. And I made something like 25 British pounds or something. I wouldn't have otherwise had that money. So you got to take on every opportunity you can to make money. Now, when I say make money, I don't mean make money for the sake of having loads of money. I mean enough to get by, enough to support people around you, and enough to promote your own wellness and happiness and well-being. So that's kind of where I stand on that. I'm not a money-making guru at all. I'm probably the last person you'd want to ask, but if you have any ideas, Rick, please let me know. He's working with Greg. At this point, I probably feel safer consuming some sugary drinks than microbiome destroying sweeteners have. Yeah, I've had this debate with a few people. There's more discussion, but I kind of feel like we know Coca-Cola, for example, very high in sugar, will raise blood glucose. You'll need a sufficient amount of insulin from pancreas in order to nullify that glucose load. We know that. We have that as a definite fact. We definitely need to do that. There is strong evidence to say that it destroys our microbiome, the sugar-free sweeteners. I kind of act on things that I do know and do see. So if I at some point had gut disruption and I could pinpoint it to Coca-Cola or Diet Coke or Pepsi Max, whatever it was, then I'd stop drinking it. I'm very responsible in that regard. I hope other people are as well. But I can see your point of view because your gut microbiome is a very imperative thing. So I'm not at all dismissing that point at all. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. But you know, you're making an active decision to improve your health, and I don't think you're wrong at all. Thank you, Sheen. I was getting ready to leave. Thank you kindly. Saw your greeting. Brilliant. Thank you, people. Have a good day. Great day. I went to the gym on like a couple sips of water in total yesterday. No issue. Fat hydration is really powerful. You become less thirsty as you exert yourself. The other thing as well that people don't seem to mention much about having a high protein intake, and for a point of reference, Lost Dragonflies is on the PKD diet. That's a high fat, lower protein diet. You do need less water when you eat less protein. And when you eat more fat, you need less water. Protein does have a diuretic effect. It's very well established in literature. Anecdotally, it's very well established. And with my clients and people that I consult with, it's very well established. So if you eat too much protein, your thirst will go up and you'll need to keep drinking more to keep up with that thirst in a sense. So yeah, it's a very powerful thing, fat adaptation. You're definitely onto the right idea there. You too. It's me that thanks Yushin. That high meant a lot to me. Drinking extra bit, it does dull out your B vitamin. What's the word? Composition in your body. Water soluble, granted, so you're going to weed them out. Some B vitamins you'll store. If you're drinking beyond first, natural first, then I think you're definitely right there. And you lose electrolytes as well. So what people don't realize is in the absence of electrolytes, water will dehydrate you. Now, how do we know that? If you do, for example, a 1 week water fast without any electrolytes, so you're starting from scratch, no food, nothing, no supplements, just water, no salt, nothing. You'll be a lot the first few days. You become more fat adapted, then that might go down a bit. Then you start to get cramps, electrolyte issues. You might get headaches. So you want to stay in that state of adequate hydration. So that doesn't mean drinking lots of water. It means hydrating yourself with electrolytes, with the taurine from the animal proteins that you're eating. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. That's a very good point you've made there. Thank you for making that. When I eat a lot of fat, I don't drink that much either. Brilliant. It just goes to show, doesn't it? Calipers. Yeah. Calipers are good. As long as you've got a spot on your body that is small enough for the calipers to work on. If you're 60% body fat, it's going to be very difficult to use calipers. So, but someone like you, Sheena, you could by all means use calipers, maybe in your arm, your midsection, maybe your iliac crest, so the pelvic bone. That's an area you could do. Got a question here from Lost Dragonfly again. Brilliant. On a PKD type approach with an upper limit of both protein and fat per day, could you think of a feeding strategy to still gain weight? I think I know what you're asking. So the PKD approach is focusing on the macronutrient ratios. Works out something like 18% protein and 82% fat by energy value. Feeding strategy. I mean, I'm not sure how you're going to gain weight unless you're exceeding the upper limit of protein and fat. You could still do the same ratio. So, for example, myself, I think I mentioned this yesterday. I did at some point 360 grams of fat and 180 grams of protein. So roughly 80-20. I did gain fat doing that. Not a lot, so I never got overweight, obese or thing, but I did gain a little bit of fat and I felt great. But athletically, my performance was brilliant. Like I didn't notice any detriments. That's how it's interesting. But to gain weight, I think he may struggle. I mean, the thing about the PKD thing is a lot of people normalize their natural homeostatic body weight. So PKD isn't something you're probably going to do to go outside of that natural weight range. I'm only meant to be about, I don't know, 62, 70 kilos. I'm not 110, 108. So yeah, I think if I did the PKD, I'd probably get as low as maybe 90 kilos at my very lowest, but I would be skeleton face, ribs out, veins all over my body. Yeah, I probably wouldn't feel too good if I had that upper limit of protein anyway, just because I'd start to catabolize too much. I'll use mirrors and pictures and measurements to see results. Yeah, that's a good idea. You're on it as long as you're honest with yourself and you can see in the mirror how you look. I always find that mirrors are more useful than pictures in that you're three-dimensional. You can see yourself moving and breathing. It gives you a better idea. The only struggle I have when I'm coaching someone is if they send me pictures. It's very helpful that they send me these pictures, but the problem is you see a two-dimensional picture of them. Like if you look at me now, like straight on in the camera, my face looks a bit puffy. But when I move my head in 3D, my face is a bit slimmer because you get an idea of shadows contouring. So that's kind of how that works. So if you can use mirrors and be honest with yourself, think, that angle will look okay, that angle don't look okay, you start to notice like similarities in your body composition. So yeah. And thank you. Just so you know, 26 people have joined my live chat. I appreciate you stopping by. If you have any questions, please leave a queue at the start of the question. I'll be happy to oblige and give my most sensible answer. I might not be correct, but hopefully I can be if I try. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Sheena. Question. It was more to calculate one's protein intake for athletes and people starting carnivore. I see. Yeah, I missed that part of the question. I see. So if we're to assume that our body fat calipers and maybe the bioimpedance scales put you up, say 15% body fat, or let's use 10% because it's easier to make numbers up from that, and you weigh 200 pounds or maybe 80 kilos, from there, you might then work out your protein grams. And it's going to be tricky to work out because I think people do deviate on this a lot. I'll explain a few reasons why after I explain the calculation. I'm sure you already know this, but say if, for example, you're 10% body fat and 80 kilos, you have roughly 8 kilos of body fat in your body and 72 kilos of lean muscle mass. All you'd do from there is find a measurement or a study or something which aligns with your goals to find out what your protein intake. If we're looking at maybe maintaining a natural lower average muscle mass, you might be looking at something like maybe 1.4, 1.5 grams per kilogram of lean body mass. If you're someone that's athletic, you might be going close to 1.75. So if you're 72 kilos of lean mass and 1.75, you might be able to do the calculation for me, but something like, I'm going to guess about 125, 130 grams of protein. From there, you'd probably use different assessments to see if that is enough for you. If you're chronically sore, if you start to have electrolyte disturbances, if you start to get headaches, maybe it might suggest that you're a bit lower on the protein. You need more B vitamins, something like that. I've obviously scaled up protein to a very high amount for extended periods of time. I can say I didn't gain any more muscle mass for it, but my appetite was completely suppressed. The point I was mentioning earlier about it being a bit nuanced for some people is that I've consulted with different people of different backgrounds, active and very inactive. Some of the active ones, if they're looking at their total energy intake, they might be consuming, say, for example, say they needed 400 grams of fat per day. I've seen that a few times. If they're going for a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of energy value, it might be something like, in terms of grammage, it might be 400 protein, 400 fat. They're not going to need 400 grams of protein, and they might suffer some ill consequences for that much because it takes its toll on the digestive system. So that's where the ratios don't really come in. And that 400 grams of protein might actually be better at 200 grams of protein, or maybe a bit more. So yeah, there's a bit of nuance here, and that's why I don't like these ratios. I don't like percentages. They're good as general guidelines, but I do consult with lots of people that fall outside of the guidelines because of their activity levels differ so much. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. If you want any more detail, please just ask me, Nick. Be happy to oblige. I've lost a lot of muscle mass, but I'm going to gain it back as soon as I get moving. That's good to hear. Yeah, you don't have to do a lot, Matthew. It depends on your goals as well. Like if you want to be a professional level bodybuilder, you're going to do professional level bodybuilder workouts. If you want to be someone that's a bit fitter than average, you're only going to be doing walking up the stairs, maybe like 10 times a day, up and down, up and down. You might be doing lunges, you might be doing push-ups against a sofa. You might be doing dips against a sofa. You might be doing maybe a shoulder press with, I don't know, a few tins of beans or something. So it's all scalable. You don't have to go crazy in the gym or anything. I have to measure my protein only because I will undereat proteins if I don't, because fat fills me up. That makes sense, yeah. Some people do have to calculate these things, and it makes sense. Sometimes people's appetites, like the hunger signaling, is a bit off, so they do end up having to sort of weigh things a bit more and have to be more meticulous. So that's why I think all this like talk about eat meat till you're full and whatever, and eventually it will sort itself out. Some people it takes a very long time to sort out. So I wouldn't really be taking that as gospel. Listen to your body, and the more ill your health is generally, the more you're going to need to consult with different people, different experts in this sort of field. And the more you're going to need to track things and be more meticulous about how you're going to go about improving your symptoms. So someone like you, Sheena, probably will need to track at least for extended period of time, and hopefully you'll get to a point where you don't have to anymore, because I think it's an unnecessary stress, and I hope you don't have to in the future. Traditional herbs seem to be the least aggressive toxin-wise. Onions, garlic, quite a lot more so. Yeah, perhaps. I know they're quite high in salicylates, so it can be quite damaging to some people. Funnily enough, in the nutrition community, in terms of the naturopathic, holistic health, space where I used to work, these things were heavily promoted. There's a product, I probably won't name, but it is very high in, I think it's salicylic acid. That was used as like a digestive tonic. But it's funny to think that same digestive tonic could be absolutely toxic to people like yourself. So some things are medicines for some people, and some things are absolutely hell on earth. So I think it's very context specific. 10 kilograms muscle loss in a year. Yeah, I think you can gain that back. I think 10 kilos in a year is quite doable. Just scale up your nutrition intake alongside your activity level. Take it slow, don't rush into it, and just understand it's going to take you a long time. And maybe it might be a kilo a month. You think kilo a month for nearly a year? That's good going. So I think it's certainly achievable, and probably the farthest away geographically. Hey, you're in Florida, aren't you? Hi guys. Hi Raymond. How are you? We've got two Raymonds in the chat. We've got Ray. Question, Coach G. If most exercise science, sorry, I always giggle when you call me that. It's quite funny. If most exercise science are based on population that eat an omnivore diet, could you extrapolate the outcomes of those studies? For example, volume. That's a good question. That's a very good question. Now, if we're talking about training stimulus and perhaps protein intakes, probably to some extent, we probably know that the protein intake that we take on a carnivore diet is going to be more utilizable than a standard Western diet. So it might be that if we're looking at protein intakes per kilogram, a carnivore diet might need a bit less. Then you have to think, if enough fat isn't coupled with that protein, you might need more to support the gluconeogenic pathway to give you more energy to top up that glucose balance and still fulfill the requirements of repairing, building muscle tissue and B vitamins and everything else. So that's an interesting point. In terms of volume, that'd be interesting because I know there's some downstream effects of carbohydrate consumption, exogenous, that could be useful to some people. More insulin, more IGF-1. But what I do know about that is that if you have a post-workout protein shake, say, and this has been studied to death pretty much, and it has a lot of leucine in it, an amino acid which stimulates muscle protein synthesis. If it has enough of that in it, the results and outcome of having that will be near enough or roughly the same as someone having the leucine with a bolus of carbohydrates. So our biology is we have an amount of glucose in our body, yeah. Not a large amount. We have an amount, yeah, definitely. But if you think in terms of mass, well, volume, I guess, the difference between the glucose component of our body, the water component, the protein component, and the fat component, I'm guessing pretty much for everyone, the protein and fat will be much higher than the glucose component. When I say glucose, I mean stored glucose, which is muscle glycogen. So, yeah, if you're putting in protein and fat, you can't go too wrong. And when we talk about building muscle, we're not talking about building glycogen storage. Glycogen storage is necessitated from the amount of muscle that build based on the protein that we uptake and synthesize onto our skeletal system. So we're looking at protein and fat. So yeah, I think you could extrapolate it to some point, but how much, I don't know. That would be an interesting study to do at some point in the future. If someone could throw a load of money at like 100 people and say, or, 200 people, so 100 in each group, maybe you do the carnivore diet for 6 weeks and start training. We'll show you how. The other group does the same, but they do an omnivore diet, see who gets better results. I would think that in that time span, if the testing was done similarly in terms of body composition, that they would have very similar results. I think downstream, say for example, a year down the line, they'd see that the carnivore group has better health outcomes, which would then translate to better muscle growth. And that's if we're talking about building muscle. That probably apply to strength as well, assuming they can eat enough on a carnivore diet. And the same would apply probably to fat loss. So I think the carnivore diet is probably win-win in that regard. But until we see the studies, I can't sort of say it for sure. But that's my own guesstimation. So it's my opinion. So it's not a fact. To individuals who consume not animal-based way of eating, where other inflammation markers are on the lower side, of course, considering all other factors equal. Yeah, pretty much what I just said. So I think that makes sense. If you got any more questions, Ray, just let me know in the chat. I'd be happy to oblige. Rick's in Florida somewhere. I think Boca Raton, but I might be wrong. Ben asked, in your recent video with Bart K, he mentioned he is concerned of excess gluconeogenesis with a lot of protein. Is this less of an issue with individuals who are highly muscled? So you're dealing with more glucose in the bloodstream as a result of excess protein if you're heavily muscled. Is that an issue? That's a brilliant question. Let me think about this one. So sorry if I take a pause, but I don't want to throw an answer out there without thinking carefully. I think so, yes. Reason being, your body has to deal with that excess glucose in the blood. And if it's not being used up as energy, i.e. you're sedentary, if you're eating a lot, you're more likely to be activating the Randle cycle, which is inflammatory when inappropriately activated and to a high degree. So yeah, I think there is a sensible amount of protein you should be taking in. People like myself probably exceed the normal scientific realms of or ideas around protein intake. I don't seem to suffer any ill health from it. But probably the other things as well would be like your digestive health. It can affect your appetite signaling, maybe. If you've got chronically higher glucose levels, it might mean that your sleep's not as good. I notice that quite consistently with my clients. When they come to me, they say, my sleep's bad. I eat, I don't know, 250 grams of protein a day. I'm like, okay, we'll reduce that a bit and see what happens. And their sleep improves. So yeah, there's a lot of different things to think about here. Besides obviously the gluconeogenesis. That's a very good question. If you have any more information you want in regards to that question itself, just let me know in the chat. I'll be happy to help if I can. Miami, Florida, that's it. I always forget it's that place. Oklahoma. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Angelica Nile, nice to see you. I remember now, actually. Yeah, you spoke on Bart's Live. So for anyone who doesn't know, Angelica Nile later had issues with the live chat. It seemed like people like myself and Bart were ignoring her comments, but we don't do that. It doesn't help us at all because people like Angelica Annihilator are throwing money at the screen, like you can see here, to ask questions. And they wouldn't be in our interest to not answer them. So apologies that your messages weren't seen. It's frustrating because I've been in the same boat as you, and I've had points where I've asked questions to Bart perhaps 5 or 6 times, and then I've sent a text message or whatever to Pim and said, like, "Are you getting my messages?" sort of thing. Like, after the point, she said none of them come up. So it's one of those things. I think when some of these softwares that we use to put up questions on the screen, the intermediary sort of apps, web apps sort of thing, they can sometimes cause problems. I don't know if there's a max capacity, which might be why these things are happening. I don't know. But if at any point we don't ask a question, just type it in and keep typing in. I promise we're not ignoring you or anything. It's not how we work. Anyway, getting back to your point. Hey, sorry I got mad on Bart's last live. What do you think about Bart saying to avoid using barbells due to risk of injury? He said they are anatomically harmful. Do you suggest limiting bar workouts? Firstly, thank you very much for the $10. I greatly appreciate that. It's very kind of you to offer that money to me for my brief ideas about this topic. Sorry, I'm a bit antsy today. I've been a bit anxious because I've not been sleeping for a while. Getting back to your point, it's very interesting that Bart said that. I know he's a fan of compound exercises, but I didn't know he said that or thought that. Personally, if you look at any of my own workouts, the vast majority of them, when I'm training at maximal capacity, i.e. not dealing with spine fusion surgery and stuff, I'd say 95% of my workouts are using machines and or resistance machines of some kind, plate loaded, anything in a fixed path or somewhat fixed path. I don't like many barbell exercises because they don't really put much strain in the right portions of the movement, because you're relying on gravity and solely gravity. You can't position your body oftentimes in positions which improve muscle activation. Now, I think they are very useful. And if you are, for example, you will have to do powerlifting exercises. You have to bench press, squat, deadlift. So you're going to have to do a barbell workout of some kind. Most of my clients, some of them are actually in this chat right now, they have somewhat of a mix of these things. Now, I'm big on safety when it comes to training, and not for the sake of just covering my own back. I believe in safe training. That is something I advocate and personally do. I find that a fixed bar path, i.e. resistance machine, is very useful for me. It allows me to focus in on the muscle that I'm using without having to worry about extraneous variables or dealing with gravity, in the sense that my body will default in certain maybe hip positions or grip positions or weaker sides. A fixed plane for me generally has created a relatively symmetrical body left to right, top to bottom for myself. I notice that for most people as well. For example, if you're doing Bart and I don't like bench presses, so I'll mention this point here. If you're doing a flat bench press, we know nearly everyone is stronger one side. So if I get to a point where I'm training at max capacity and I'm pushing it, my right shoulder seems to give me a bit of ache sometimes, like the front delt, that sort of complex. So if I'm going to be doing that one, I'm more likely to cause more strain on the area of the shoulder joint. And that, when I say that, I'm saying when I'm doing 8 to 10 repetitions, when I'm getting to 9, when I'm really struggling, that right shoulder is really going to have issues. It's grinding joint, like bone on bone. Because if I'm to do that in a chest press, which is, hands a bit invisible there, but if I'm doing a chest press and it's coming inwards, it's converging, or if an exercise is diverging, then I'm going to be able to activate more muscle fibers in that plane without causing impingement in different joints. So that's one benefit of those exercises. Obviously, when you're using a bar, you're stuck with a certain grip position. Bars tend to be flat. Obviously, there's like a safety bar, I'm trying to think now. I think it's called like a bull bar or something. I don't know. There's different bars you can use, and generally they all keep you in a fixed position. Probably the best equipment you can use, in my opinion, if you're trying to build muscle, is to use something with a adjustable resistance profile. So that means, for example, you have 3 loading pins on a piece of equipment, and depending on what pin you load the weight on the discs will affect how the load is distributed to different muscle groups at different times. So, for example, in the fully stretched position of the maybe lat pull down, that will provide the highest amount of tension. Now, you can work it in reverse, so you can make it much harder at the contracted point. Problem with that is people tend to be quite weak when the muscle is very short. So you're kind of working around it. So you want to get maximal muscle contraction so you can activate more muscle fibers. Because I think although all muscle fibers do activate when you're training, say, like a bicep curl, I think if you can get more tension in different points of it, you can get an extra benefit from doing that repetitions that way. So there's a YouTube channel called House of Hypertrophy, and they made a recent video about this. So having, for example, the idea of 21s, which is a repetition scheme where you're doing 3 lots of 7 reps. In that, you're doing maybe the high portion of the reps, the bicep curls, the bottom, the stretch position. Then you're doing the mid-range. Just doing 3 different areas of a bicep curl. you're putting resistance through different lengths of, different tensions sort of thing. If you can find a way to load all of that and get all of the muscle short and maximally, I don't know, put maximal intensity into it and tension through it, I think you're going to gain more muscle from doing that. It's muscle biomechanics, but if you think, I'm not sure how much more to expand on that, but if you have any more questions on that or anything I've just said, please just let me know in the chat and I'll try and explain it a bit better if I can. This is Carnivore Ramblings after all, so people do have to expect my ramblings will continue a lot of the time, and that's just one example of them. For anyone who doesn't, I suffer with synesthesia, which means when I'm often speaking, I'm seeing what I'm saying. Also experience different sensations when I'm saying, which is very frustrating. So that means what I'm trying to say often doesn't come out how I want it to sound. But yeah, that's why I keep asking you guys, if I don't make sense, please just ask the question again. Because I never want you to feel like I've just fobbed you off and not give you a solid answer or answer the question itself. Stretching is an interesting topic. I think I remember you talking about it with Pat. Great interview. Is it essential after exercise? Thanks for that. Yeah, I can't remember which chat that was. No, it's not essential. I'll say people that tend to overstretch, they're generally a bit weaker. There will be anecdotal experiences from people that say, I'm a gymnast and I hang in the pull down position for 3 minutes after training and I'm plenty strong sort of thing. But, is it essential? Not really. I think it's important to be mobile, which is more important than being stretchy. Stretching is just something you do to aim to improve flexibility. I think mobility is more important, and they are slightly distinctively different things. Like anyone can sort of like stretch the tricep like that. I can't do it very well because my shoulders are a bit sore, my triceps are a bit sore from today. But mobility. So, am I able to get that shoulder joint I just moved into different positions so I can work it safely in different range of motion without impingement? So, I think mobility is more important than stretching. And stretching can be a useful way to become more mobile. But I think ideally, if you can work for a full range of motion without aggravating any joints or causing damage to any tissues, you'll probably get more benefit. Hope that answers your question. All right, where are we? I'll probably end this soon, guys, by the way, just so you know. Let's say about 8:30, so 20 minutes from now, roughly. A friend in Wisconsin has a dairy farm. Interesting. Don't forget to hit the like button, peeps. Yes, please do. That would help a lot. Having some up and down experiences at the moment on this platform, so it'd be helpful if anyone can leave a like if they can't afford to spend any money on my channel or services anyway. And that's probably the most helpful thing you can do. And I do appreciate it. A comment as well goes quite a long way. You'd be quite surprised. And that applies to any of my other future videos as well. I appreciate you guys probably watch heaps of videos each day. So you're not going to watch 10 videos and put a comment that's going to be that long on every single one. But if you can put a good video or just something, that'd be very useful. I'd appreciate that. Michelle, nice to see you. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I spoke to my physio today. She's very happy. I've got my x-ray tomorrow. I'm hoping they're going to be very happy. So we'll see how it goes. And if they're happy, I'm happy. So yeah, nice to see you. Hello, Lambs. Hello. Hey. Sorry, my English is bad. I was most of the time in bed, but I was moving for the minimum. Bathroom, eating, cleaning. Thanks for your time. I appreciate your channel. Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, if you ever want to consult with me about this sort of thing, you can provide more detail. Feel free to send me an email or go to my website above, and I'll be happy to help you out if I can. I'm an affordable coach in this sort of way, so hopefully I can help you out. If you, of course, have any questions, please just ask them below. But it's very difficult sometimes because you want to help people, but you need a lot more information at times. So it depends what the question is. But if I keep asking you the same different questions, it can be very long-winded for you to get the answer that you want and deserve. So yeah, but thank you for watching. I do appreciate you. asked, do you mean protein being diuretic in itself, or that gluconeogenic pathway aspects impairs adequate ketone levels fat hydration? Perhaps both. Perhaps both. I know that protein in itself is diuretic in that if you have too much of it, there's excess metabolites that you produce as a result of it. Those things need to be excreted by the body through natural mechanisms, i.e. diuresis. So that's how you're going to be weaning yourself throughout the night if you're having too much protein. For example, when I was doing 500, 550 grams of protein per day, I was doing about 200 fat, maybe 150 to 200 grams of fat per day. I was constantly on the loo. I mean, go for a wee. Perhaps sometimes every 45 minutes to an hour. I was also drinking a lot of water because I felt so dehydrated because I was constantly flushing myself with more water. So it's never an ending vicious cycle. So yeah, I think you just need enough protein with enough fat. Some people are very sensitive to the proteins itself, so they might up the fat to make up for that, energy deficit sort of thing. But yeah, you just need enough of each and carry on your path and you should be fine. I hope that at some point you can be a bit more, lenient with your diet and achieve the health goals that you want without having to be so strict. That'd be nice for you, I think. Sorry to hear that. How are you doing now? That's interesting. Yeah, thank you guys for supporting Richard Cardinal, otherwise known as Jonathan. Thanks, Lambs. I appreciate your concern. I feel a lot better since carnivore diet, but I'm still getting craving and eating some junk. I'm in a loop. I move more too. I tried to exercise a bit. Yeah, when you say you've lost, I believe, 10 kilograms of muscle, have you been under eating in that time as well? Like, has your appetite gone down? It might be that your cravings for junk and things like that might be put into remission somewhat if you speak to someone that is an expert in that sort of thing. So a few people you could speak to that I personally know, Dr. Joan Ifland. She's an expert in addictive food. Junk and processed food addiction. And there's Pim Johnson. If anyone can put her link in the chat, that'd be very useful. She's an expert in carb cravings and getting junk out your diet effectively. They both, I know Pim has a Facebook group which is free of charge to join. You can get some advice from there. She's got live Q&A. She might be your best bet in terms of getting advice about junk food eating and cravings. Outside of that, you could just try eating a bit more. I know it sounds a bit sort of simple, but if, for example, you're doing 6 eggs a day and a pack of beef, do 8 eggs a day and a pack and a half of beef. It might be that you need the extra food just to keep some muscle on, get that protein in. I'm saying this without any idea of your diet, so I'm just spitballing here, but hopefully that might be useful information for you. Paleomedicina says too high fat leads to nutrient deficiency, low vitamin D, weakness and cramps. Why do you think that is? Vitamin D decreased when I overdid fat in an attempt to gain weight last year. That's interesting. I think if the high fat is, if fat is added to your diet in order to reduce the protein below a sensible amount, so whatever the sensible amount for you is, then you might be emitting some cofactors to help facilitate the absorption of vitamin D, if that makes any sense. I don't know if it's necessarily the higher fat, because fat would aid fat-soluble vitamins to be absorbed. I think it might be something else, but that's something they're expert in, and it's their dietary protocol, so it might be best to ask them. But it's a good question. Got Cindy. Nice to see you, Cindy. Approaching my 50th birthday and at a good body weight. Is a calorie surplus necessary eating keto to build muscle? Focus on protein if adding calories. Not necessarily. I think the higher you are in terms of your body composition status, i.e., if you're a pro bodybuilder, you're going to have to make more drastic measures to increase your muscle mass. If you're someone that's starting from a sedentary baseline standard Western lifestyle amount, whatever it is, you'll just need to eat maybe a bit more. It might be that you don't need to eat any more. If you're trying to build muscle, obviously you need to try and undertake a resistance training program. How that might apply to you depends on different factors. Might be that you can do a whole bodybuilding style workout. It might be that you can just do walking around the house. I don't know. But if you add protein and fat to the point where you're supporting the needs of your body, I think your body will allow the muscle growth to happen if that's your goal. If you need more help in that regard, I'd suggest consulting me through the above link. There might be one below as well, perhaps. Just get my website, do affordable consultations, be able to sort of guide you through that and discuss with you how exactly you're going to do that and give you a proper plan to work with. So that might be useful. But if you've got any more questions, please just write in the chat below. Michelle asks, what do you think about using fat fast for weight loss? I've seen in some Facebook groups that people will do this for a day or two in a week. I've done 2 videos on fat fasting. You may not have seen them. If you go onto my channel, type in fat fasting composition consultant. I did one which is about 9 or 10 minutes long where I spoke about the pros and cons of it. I did another with the people that have been advocating it for a while, so that's a steak and butter gang. I think for someone like you, based on what you do and my understanding of how you work and what you've been doing, I probably wouldn't undertake it. I'll probably be more inclined to do something like a protein sparing modified fast in your very specific case. When I say that, I mean, we'll be doing the standard diet that we sort of worked on and talked about before. Then 1 day per week, say on a day when you're very busy or your mind's occupied, maybe you'll be eating a diet where you're eating higher protein but lower fat. That can help reduce your overall energy intake, which will cause less for overall detriment long term. Your body will still know. It's still going to pick up, oh, you've not fed me today. But you'll drop a bit of body fat and there'll probably be less suffering for it. Now, the problem is that people get when they start these sort of things is they think, oh, 1 day out of a week gave me good results. I'm going to do 2, then I'm going to do 3, then I'm going to do 4. You're chasing the dragon at that point, and I don't think that's going to be beneficial. So if you can just try 1 day like a protein sparing modified fast, that might be quite useful to you. I think if you're coming from a carnivore diet, which I know you are, then you're probably not going to get an extra benefit from fat fasting. It could be useful if you're someone that easily overeats or you indulge, or perhaps you come from a background of just like go nuts with food for like 3 days and you want to get back into a fat adapted state. Yeah, fat fast might be useful, but outside of that, it's probably not got that much practical utility, and that's in my opinion. I don't see anyone doing this as a routine sort of thing, so I think it's a way of eating, not a fad diet in a way. If that makes any sense. I hope that's clear, because I know a lot of people will take that out of context and just say I hate fat fasting. It's not that. I think it just has limited utility. Hello, Hard Logic. Nice to see you. How to bulk on a carnivore diet? Eat more of everything or just increase fat intake? It depends where you're coming from on the diet. I think this is very similar to the question I've had before from Cindy. And the answer is, what is your current protein intake? Is that enough to support muscle growth? And does the fat intake in relation to the protein that you're taking in give you enough energy to support the additional bulk that you're trying to put on, the extra energy you're trying to put into your system, so the protein can do its job? So if you're thinking about building muscle, you're looking at protein and fat being 2 separate entities. There is a middle point between them where you need enough of each to support the overall energy value. Ideally, you want enough protein, enough fat, and it sounds very like simple, but that is the answer. Now, where people sometimes go wrong is they think, I need, say you're very active, say, I don't know, say you did 100,000 steps a day and 4 hours of workouts, or you did some crazy workout thing. Your fat to protein grams, your protein grams will hit an upper limit. Your fat will go exponentially up because your oxidation, your beta oxidation from fat will go up. So you're gonna need more fat in relation to the protein. So it's kind of a individual levers kind of thing. So you've got to get the protein right, I think, first and foremost. Then the fat kind of fills in the gap. Now at times you might accidentally decrease protein a bit, and your appetite might go up. So in case you might increase your protein, then increase the fat if you need more energy to support your bulking phase, if that makes sense. But when I don't really like the idea of bulking because I think it means that you have to gain excess body fat. I mean, looking for myself, I've been training for I don't know, 14, 15 years at this point. I've tried pretty much everything there is in terms of diet and training. I'm pretty well experienced now. Haven't perfected by any means, but I've done quite well considering. And I think the best gains are when your body's healthiest. And that means you're just cruising along, but you're giving your body enough reason to gain the muscle, and you're giving enough fuel to build the muscle on top of that. And it doesn't have to be a huge amount more than what you're taking at baseline level, but it just has to be enough. So think of muscle growth as not necessarily a up and down thing. Think of it as a linear sort of thing, and occasionally make a little bump down or bump up, but that's how it goes. It just takes a bit of time, but be very patient, because a lot of people try to just say, I'm going to gain 20 kilos this year of muscle, but it doesn't work, and they feel horrible. Digestion goes bad. They feel like death. They overeat to compensate on their poor health and make themselves feel better, and they never reach their goals. So just be very conscious of that, and I hope that didn't sound condescending, but try and make sure your goals are quite reasonable. And that's with the limited context that I've got from your question. So just bear that in mind. Thank you. Agree, Jonathan. I found I can get away with some cheats every now and then once you've healed. It's the first month, especially, to be rather strict, allowing your body to set things straight and equals one. Yeah. So Jonathan, or Richard Cardinal, I found that if I just cheated really hard and made myself feel horrible, now this isn't advice, this is my own, what I found myself, I'm less likely to deter from the carnivore diet, and I'm more likely to stick to it, because I've got that much reason to think, I felt horrible, I'm not going to do this to myself again, I'm not going to binge eat, I'm not going to eat things that I'm not meant to be eating. So every time you look at something, think, is that going to get me close to my goals or not? In many cases, especially if you're unwell, it will not do that. Say it back to yourself over and over again, and eventually you'll click and you think, right, my health status or my body composition goals are here. I want to get here. Just keep thinking that way. So it's like a what you call, like a devil and angel kind of situation. Always go to the right side. Always go to the good side. I don't think you'll steer yourself too wrong doing that. Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, I'm probably not in the same point you guys are in. I mean, I can walk around and do quite normal things now. I just can't work out that hard. But yeah, I mean, the first few weeks were difficult. I can see how they'd be more difficult mentally if I was in a worse mental health state, definitely. But thankfully, the diet has helped put some of these feelings into remission. I'm going to be cutting this out in about 5 to 10 minutes, by the way, guys. Just so you know, if you have any questions, please put them in now, otherwise they'll probably be missed. Mr. Tammy Ray the King. Hello, good evening. Hello to you. I wonder where you came from, out of interest. I've got lots of new people in my chat recently, which is quite interesting. I'm surprised I've reached a wider audience, because usually it's just me rambling with the same people. Yeah, naturopath crackpots would literally kill me. My gut is a lab-grade phytotoxin detector. I only tolerate grass-fed beef at the moment. I didn't even tolerate cartilage and bone broth for half a year. That explains why you're where you are now in terms of your diet. So yeah, that's fair enough. I can respect that completely. I'm good, thanks. How are you? That's where you come from, Sheena's channel. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. So my channel focuses on improving body composition and health. My mantra is aligning physique goals with positive health outcomes. I specialize in nutrition, exercise, health, and various aspects around biohacking. I don't have all the answers, but I have some of them. But I've got quite a few experiences from myself and from hearing other people, so I can perhaps help you in some way. So if you have any questions that relate to those topics, please ask them in the chat. I'd be happy to try and answer them if I can. Hello, Mr. Timmy. If you used to be fairly well trained trying to get back into it, can you do lazy workouts until you're back to original mass? If so, just how lazy? Yeah, I think so. So I've not lost any lean body mass according to my bioelectrical impedance scale things. It seems that way in the mirror as well. I look as muscular as I was before surgery. I've not trained properly in about 6 weeks at this point. When I say properly, I mean in a gym where I'm loading and I'm trying hard. All my workouts have been like 20, maybe 30 reps, generally speaking. Body weight sort of stuff generally, and that's been not to maximal intensity. It's been some points higher intensity, but never maximal. I can't push myself that hard because I cannot deal with the load of my body from failing at a certain rep range that is quite low. My body won't deal with it. My spine won't deal with it effectively. I think it depends how long you're looking at and how far above your normal human being homeostatic set point is. If you're someone that was extremely muscular and you're doing, I don't know, sit-ups and push-ups, off the side of the bed, you're probably not going to maintain that muscle mass that well, but you will maintain most of it. Also depends how long you've been training for. If you've been training for decades, the muscle mass probably has quite a strong determination to stay on you. So there's probably that comes into it as well. So yeah. I'm going to try and wrap these up quite quickly, guys, just because I'm going to leave in a minute because I've been staring at a screen all day and I still need to get back to Zbigniew about some coaching stuff at some point. Yes, they should. I think that airs in about an hour and a half. I'm going to make that live and I'll probably be quite tired doing it, so I won't be able to moderate very well. I'll probably say all the wrong things and ramble, but that's quite normal. Sorry to hear that, Mr. Timmy Ray. That's never nice to hear. Yeah, Matthew, that's good to hear. It's all these like subtle other benefits about the carnivore diet people seem to ignore or not speak about much. Like how many of us have bad backs, bad joints? Our feet hurt, we can't stand for long, we're not very fit, our asthma's bad, our skin's bad, we get headaches, we've got food addiction, we're overweight, we can't sleep well, our hair's falling out, my hair is always falling out. Just off the bat, like 12 different things. All those things, and there's heaps more, and there's individual diseases that people need to put into remission. And things like the carnivore diet does that in many cases. It does make my mind boggle that I've interviewed at this point heaps of people, probably spoken to hundreds of people that have done this and sort of the health and they say, yeah, I feel much better than I did before. Yeah, it doesn't get out to the wider community. It's very sad in a way, but that's my bitterness towards Western way of eating. Yeah, best wishes, Nick. I hope you and your mum and your stepfather, I believe, are well. Catch up tomorrow. It'd be nice to speak soon if we can. That'd be good if you can arrange that. Just send me a message as you do. So cheers. Good night. You mentioned leucine threshold yesterday. Can you explain the time bit? Yeah, so just get back to square one. So leucine is what is implied or suggested to be the main stimulator of muscle protein synthesis. Human beings tend to need a certain amount per given meal, per given allotted time frame to stimulate that muscle protein synthesis signal. The amount that you need seems to be, pardon me, down to the amount of body weight that you have, particularly muscle mass. Myself, having close to 90 kilos of lean body mass, fat-free mass, I'll need more than someone else that is much smaller than me. So, for example, I'm probably having, at the moment, I'm having 250 grams of protein a day because I feel like that satiates me, that supports my needs, and I feel quite good having that. That will then, those 250 grams of protein will have an amount of leucine in those grammages. The amount of that is, I'm going to guess, about 20 grams. I'm having 4 meals per day, so I'm probably having around about 5 grams of leucine per meal. Now, other people that perhaps aren't as athletic, aren't trying to build muscle, just trying to maintain muscle at a smaller body weight, they might be on as low as 2 grams per meal. So your protein for most people, broadly speaking, depending on your goal, is somewhere between, assuming you're doing 3 meals per day, it's going to be somewhere between 20 grams, maybe, and all the way up to maybe 60 grams. And that's on the high end of like an athlete's amount usually. Some people exceed that amount because they need to get more food in because they have a very high energy expenditure. So there's some studies on leucine amounts and how much you need. I think the amount varies a lot. And I think it's important not to get too wrapped up in the numbers, but be sensible as in to eat enough leucine per meal. It sounds a bit like one of my like conservative answers, like I usually do. But if for example you're having, I don't know, say to get more leucine in, I know you aren't, but say to get more leucine, you're having 2 kilos of cottage cheese per day, just to get loads of leucine, just to get, I don't know, 50 grams of it, whatever it is, I don't know. You're going to have some digestive issues with that. You're not going to assimilate much of the protein. You're not going to get an exponential benefit from having the extra protein. It's going to be diminishing returns. So you want to hit the threshold, but probably not exceed it. Over time, our body has signals or a way of reducing our sensitivity to the cascading response of a leucine intake in the human diet. For example, if you're an elderly person, you will need more grams or milligrams, or however you want to work it out, of leucine per kilo of body weight or mass to stimulate protein synthesis. So you've got to factor that in as well. And when you have, say, a young person, maybe a teenager or a child, they won't need much leucine because they've got all these anabolic hormones that are trying to build more muscle naturally anyway, because they don't want to stay as a 12-year-old kid for all their life. They want to, if they're a man or a female, they want to grow into an adult. So they're going to do more with that 1, maybe 2 grams of leucine per meal, or whatever it happens to be. So I hope that explains it a bit better. But that's pretty much a short summary of everything that you'd ever hear in a leucine 2-hour-long presentation in a very simplified format. Hopefully. Yeah, cheers, Nick. Have a good night. I might see you on Bart's stream, maybe. Yeah, I am sorry to hear that. I've got no advice to you because I don't know you, but I hope things turn out for the best. Interesting. Matthew, I came from a background in gymnastics as well, and trampolining. Yeah, the rings are quite torturous at times. That's it sounds like quite a major injury, to be honest. Yeah, not ideal. I'm definitely not an expert when it comes to major injuries like that. I know about my injury, but maybe not other people's. Is there a channel to trust concerning posture during exercise like deadlifts? I like your ramblings. Autism for the win. Thank you. I appreciate that. I was just reading that again. I thought, oh God, I'm being like put down again by some troll. No, I appreciate that. Deadlifts. I mean, if you're looking to see how to do exercises properly, your best bet in terms of like people what I would aspire to train like or do train like are Jordan Peters. He comes from the UK. He has some videos on YouTube. His stuff is informative / just him training. You'll see him do it. You'll see how he talks sometimes about maybe hand or positioning. Other than that, perhaps Nick Walker. He has probably the best hamstrings perhaps ever. Strong back, strong glutes, all those sort of primary movers in the deadlift. He's going to be good to watch as well. He's a pro bodybuilder. If you can get in touch with someone like Dr. Scott Stevenson, he's very knowledgeable exercise physiology. Bart isn't a fan of deadlifts, I know that much. I'm not really either because my back is wrecked. But I think he'd give you some good ideas as well if you spoke to him about that. But if he's talking about his videos, you're going to be looking at those two people that I mentioned. It's been a while since I've been watching, like when I started watching YouTube videos about like training and stuff, I follow all these guys. And I kind of found my own way because I had perhaps have different goals to you. I kind of went off that and went more into nutrition and found my own way to train. And I've kind of found over time what I do tends to align very closely with what the science says, at least in my sort of ideas anyway. Yeah, I'm way out of my depth in that one. There are some people that are very knowledgeable exercise physiology, but I mean, there's someone called Coach Kaz, I think it's Kazim. There's Hypertrophy Coach. If you type that in, he'll probably come up. They're good at exercise technique and they talk about things and effective ways to train without damaging yourself. They're probably good people to look up to. Other people with very good deadlift technique are Ben Pakulski. If you talk about Ben Pakulski, that's Pakulski. Into YouTube, typing on deadlifts, you'll see his stuff. He's ridiculous. I wouldn't advise watching Ronnie Coleman because you might end up like Ronnie Coleman or myself. So, yeah, probably look at the guys that train hard, train effectively, and they might still teach you some things as well. My pleasure, John. If you ever have a question, please just ask in the chat. I might do one of these midweek, depending on how I feel. Maybe on a Wednesday. I'm not sure yet. Depends how I feel. But otherwise, the next one is definitely scheduled for Friday this week, and it'll be at the same time. So that'll be 7 p.m. UK time. Thank you, Sheena. Appreciate you coming by. Thank you. Loz Dragon Foss. I can't remember. Do you have a name, by the way? I think I forgot it already. That'd be useful so I don't have to keep saying your name, your username anyway. Yeah, I do tend to send people asleep if that's what you're inferring, which doesn't offend me at all. Thanks, John. I'll eat more and see for Pim. Yes, I'm a member of that group, so you'll find me on there as well if you want to ever contact me about anything. I'm relatively active on most Facebook groups and things. Yeah, she's very helpful and she's got a good heart, so she likes helping people about this sort of thing. So I think you'll find a lot of value from what she has to say. Thank you. I do feel better when I've done a PSMF in the past on occasion. I'll be in touch soon for consulting. Thank you, Michelle. Of course, in your own time, whenever you're ready and you feel like you need to touch base, of course. Yeah, it might be. I think it's worth trying for you. I mean, you've not got two major health issues, at least from what I can remember. So I have to look through my file, which is over there. But I think you should be fine. Just your day here and there might be useful. Warrior Princess Gaming. Hello, nice to see you. Imagine you're a friend of Sheena's. So thank you, Sheena, for linking these people into my chat. I appreciate that. It's helpful to have different people on my stream because it's already gone on for an hour 40 and I've not even realized it. Thank God I don't watch these live streams back because I'll be pretty horrified to see myself talking for so long. Thank you, Sheena. My pleasure. I appreciate you donating to my channel. I understand these quite tough times, so even $2 American is still a very commendable amount of money. It does go a long way, especially with my current budget on eggs and the expenses that I'm paying for those at the moment, which I'm not very happy about. So I appreciate that. You've fed me for another meal, so thank you. That means a lot. So get the protein right, then fine tune the fat. Yeah, pretty much. There is a point where you'll find that amount goes up and down all the time. I don't see people being successful tracking on Chronometer or MyFitnessPal and getting the same protein fat max all the time. They end up cheating at some point because their body signals change all the time. Your needs change all the time, but don't be afraid to adjust it on the roll sort of thing. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. And you need the protein requirement to meet minimal need from the body, and the fat's going to be the energy source, provide building blocks for hormones and things like that with the cholesterol and that sort of thing. So yeah, look at it holistically and don't focus too much about like leveling things too crazily. Just try and do something sensible. Hello, Nathan. Nice to see you. It's nice to see you. Actually, the other day you spoke to me. I think it was it Saturday or Sunday? I think it's Sunday actually. Yeah, was it? I don't know. Do you perform any exercises for your neck muscles? No. So this is something me and my brother have actually been quite lucky with. I don't have a wide neck like these, but my traps do develop very, very fast. I try to avoid actually training them because when I sleep at night and I'm hunched in that position, all this is all knotted up. So I try to avoid actually building them at all. One exercise I do like is a Smith machine behind the back shrug. So you're doing overhand grip behind the back and just lean forward slightly to bring it up to your neck and down. Controlled motion. It's a short range of motion, so you're not looking at very long times tension. Maybe it might be 30 seconds, maybe to a minute. In terms of repetitions, you might strain yourself if you're doing 8 repetitions with that sort of exercise, just because putting that much weight through your body in that sort of position can be a bit difficult, a bit awkward. So you might end up upping repetitions. But if you're an absolute novice to neck training, I'd suggest just doing the bare minimum. So the first week or first time you do it, perhaps do it on your back training days if you can. It's probably the best bet because that will help you work with grip as well. I know you're concerned about building up your forearm strength. Do that on that day, maybe towards the end, because it's not really a primary mover exercise, not going to burn through a lot of muscle or energy. That makes sense. So yeah, try that out. Might be one set. You might do 15 repetitions. Find a comfortable weight where you just about finish at 15. From there, sort of make your own assessments and decide, okay, am I comfortable going to a lower repetition range? Am I comfortable doing a second set next time? See your muscle soreness and see how much it affects you. These muscles do grow very, very fast if you train them. At least from what I've seen, it seems to be a body part people don't struggle with. So that's kind of where I stand on that. I don't do any of twisting. I think it's a bit contraindicated and bad for you. So I don't advise that. And thank you again for the super chat donation. I appreciate that. Thank you. Jonathan's from Quebec, Canada. Do you think it is okay to drink well fermented, so very low sugar kombucha if I crave it? Fermented alcohol style product. Well fermented though, yeah. Perhaps, yeah. I mean, what I've noticed with different fermented foods is that some people benefit more from others. Than some people can tolerate some fermented foods, some people can't tolerate others. I can deal with myself sauerkraut if I have it, pickles, things like that, kefir, both water and milk kefir. But I don't do well with kimchi. I don't do well with kombucha. So it suggests to me that those bacterial strains aren't compatible with me, or the spices in the kimchi are devastating to my guts. So if you're having it and you don't notice like gut disturbance, you feel better for having it, by all means, carry on doing it. If you're someone that comes from a background of severe autoimmunity, I'd probably suggest cutting it out just because it could be problematic. But if you're not noticing a problem from it and you enjoy it and you're meeting your health or physique goals, carry on having it. It's not going to be a big issue, I don't think. But other people may agree or disagree. I'd be surprised if you had lost any muscle mass. Yeah. Thank you for answering questions, Jonathan. Have a great rest of your evening. Yeah, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you stopping by and with your question as well. Nice to see you, and have a good evening as well. It's 8:45 in UK, so I need to get off this soon and stop staring at the screen. It's been about 8-9 hours of doing it today. I need to rest my eyes. So you did not gain weight or muscle and protein, but you did with fat and carbs. Not quite. So I gained probably the majority of my muscle mass on a mixed diet where I was eating just everything. But when I got to a point where I was struggling to gain more muscle mass, for example, I'm near peak maximal muscle mass building level, I don't know. I found that the carnivore diet elevated some aspects of my health, which meant that gaining muscle became easier. For example, I'd sleep better and digest food better. So that's kind of where I stand. If you're looking to gain as much overall weight as possible, you'll probably do a mixed diet, but that will be contraindicated if you're suffering with severe health issues. So you can see the average, like, say, 15-year-old kid who wants to gain weight, no health issues, they'll gain a lot of weight just eating everything in sight. It won't be the healthiest thing to do. But if the goal is, I want to gain, I don't know, 50 pounds, they'll do it quite quickly if they try hard at it. But someone like yourself in your particular position, I won't go into it, but yourself, probably protein and fat as much as you can tolerate. I wouldn't be concerned about keeping your carbohydrate grams from animals' food sources at 0. Unless, of course, you were intolerant to some of the foods that do contain the carbohydrate amounts, trace amounts, that'd be either the eggs or dairy. But I hope that answers your question. I can understand how I say things sometimes and people can misunderstand or misinterpret what I'm saying. So if you need any clarification about anything I say, just ask. What's a good substitute to a deadlift? Probably the best one I can think of without, that's probably the safest, would be either a Smith machine rack pull. I like Smith machines. I like the safety element of them. And I like that you can almost isolate the hamstrings more in them. But if you're just doing a pure deadlift for the sake of building up your posterior strength, I'd say your best bet might actually be a hyperextension on a hyperextension bench, whilst holding a substantial weight either on a bar or loaded discs. You'll be just doing that in front of you. You'll be leaning forward and back. If you want to work more glute and hams, what you'll do is you'll crunch your abdomen forward, so your lower back is stretched or hunched over. Then you'll tense your glutes and hams at the same time. Now, if you want to work your back more, you'll do the opposite. So you'd flex your quadriceps as you're in the locked-in glute ham raise position, or sorry, the hyper-extension position. Then your lower back would effectively tilt upwards. So you'd be doing that sort of motion. That's kind of the nuanced difference, but that might be your best bet. The difficult part of it in regards to making compatible similar to a deadlift is that you might struggle to get the bar from that position, like in front of you, like you'll be in a deadlift, to where you're kind of drawing back, like pinning your shoulders back to hold it upright. But that's like the lockout phase of it, so it's a bit, nap time for me. Yeah, good night, Matthew. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you being here. Sorry for being late. Hope you're good. Yeah, I'm off in a minute now, mate. I'm getting tired, but I'm good, and hoping everyone else is as well. Yeah, see you, Sheena. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you coming here. Thank you, my pleasure. Yeah, thank you for stopping by. I may do another one of these middle of the week on Wednesday if I feel up to it. I'm going to try and cap that an hour if I can. If not, I'll just be doing the one on Friday, which is already scheduled in. So I'll probably see either one of those if you can make it. And thank you for stopping by again. All right, that's all the questions done. So I'm going to leave now before anything else comes up. Thanks everyone for being here. I hope this was useful. If you've got any more questions that perhaps you won't be able to make the live stream next week for, please leave in the comments box below. You can leave a comment below just saying thanks for the video, or even leave a negative comment if you want. Even if you hated this, just say something and it can help the algorithm and help get my videos out. Leave a like if you can as well. That's always helpful, and that's kind of my ideal method of appreciation for anything I say, which might be useful to somebody, but somebody maybe not. Yeah, thank you. There's some interesting stuff about training you might find if you go back through the video if you just joined on. So it might be worth you looking back at that as well. Thank you, Jerome. Please just come with some questions, and I know you'll come up with good ones. So it'll be interesting to talk about. I'll speak to you guys soon. Cheers.